Hi, Troy Love. We've got another adventure. It's September, and we keep pacing through our Wednesday mornings with your work. And I had just mentioned, and I want to mention on the recording, Troy does a men's drop-in group every Friday, and it's talking about attachment issues. And he has started doing alternating Thursdays, a betrayed partner group to talk about attachment. Those are free drop-in groups. So if you haven't already found them, highly encourage you and invite you to join those. You'll find them on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, all spelled out, either on the events calendar or you'll see them in the online support tab. So those, beyond the once a month webinar that Troy does, that this is recorded, those are not recorded. Those are safe spaces that you can talk to him directly. And I invite you to do that. So I'll quit babbling. I'll get to the question here a second. We'll start with a question.
Sure.
Poor Troy hasn't gotten a word in edgewise yet. Sorry.
Hey, it's all good.
My bottom line question is, what level of transformation is possible? My husband is 2 months into SAA after 16 years of denying to me that he had a problem and after 40 years of acting out. In addition to porn and objectification issues, he has demonstrated behavior that makes me think there is much more underneath all of this. You're right. Not only does he exhibit high anxiety, OCD, impulsivity, disorder behavior, but seems to have an aversion to physical touch of any kind. Our marriage lacks both emotional and physical intimacy. I cannot gauge how invested he is in recovery or what long-term recovery would look like to him. I know that physical affection is my primary love language. The last 16 years have been profoundly lonely. For me, I don't know if I have 2 years in me to do the hard work of couples recovery, only to find out that he just doesn't have it in him to ever be the partner I need. He may become sexually sober, but what if he never develops a desire to hug or be close? That's what, yeah,
I'm
that's a lot. And thank you for sharing that.
yes. I hear so much pain and sadness and uh, loss going on with you, and my heart is with you. Uh, I'm gonna try and break it down into some different chunks for you. So the first question you had is, what level of transformation is possible? And to be honest, I wouldn't do this job. I wouldn't be a therapist if I didn't believe that people could completely transform their lives. It would there wouldn't be a whole lot of value for me in it if I just felt like, well, we just have to settle. Um, because I have seen people completely transform their lives. I've seen marriages completely transform. I've seen relationships with children and parents completely transform. So the level to which transformation is possible is unfathomable and unfathomable. Try to say that word 10 times fast, uh, but there's a lot of contingencies that go along with it, and some of those are some of the questions that you're asking, like how much of a desire does he have to change? How long is this going to last, and is it going to be worth it? And those are some legitimate questions that a partner and also someone in recovery asks themselves on a regular basis. Am I in it for the long haul? Am I willing to continue to do this when it's going to be challenging? Would my life trajectory be better served if I went in a different direction? And I can't answer any of those questions for you, especially because I don't know you at all. But those are legitimate questions, and hopefully you have a therapist that you're able to feel like you can process some of those questions with, because you need to be able to be at peace with what those answers are for yourself, and those answers may look different for you than the person sitting next to you. I've seen couples where the partner decides that the best choice for her is to pursue divorce, and so that's what she does. She's able to do it without resentment and anger, and she still loves and holds space for and cares for her partner, and yet that's what she needs to do. And I've seen others who feel like their trajectory is, I need to be there and continue to be in this marriage because I think that that is the way that it's going to be. I will share with you, I just had a client who, she and her husband have been separated for over 5 years, and during that time he's been living the life of a non-recovery sex addict, doing all the things that go along with it. And she just kept feeling like she needed to hang on, and she couldn't understand, why do I need to keep hanging on? It doesn't make any sense. And then just last week, she and he had a heart-to-heart talk, and he said, I think I'm ready to come home. I think I'm ready. I realized that what I've been looking for isn't out there, it's here. And so his heart is changing. And when she told me that, like tears pouring down my face as I'm saying that change is possible. So you just don't know what it looks like. You've identified that there are a couple of things that may make it harder for him, like the high anxiety, the OCD, and the impulsive disorder things. That those can be things that are happening in the brain that might need to be, well, not might, I would suggest are taking a look at neurologically and with a psychiatrist to see if any of that can be helped. Because if your brain isn't wiring correctly or firing the way that it needs to, it does make things tremendously more difficult for him and for you. So that would be one thing that maybe if they were able to take a look at that and make some of that a little easier, that change may be easier to maintain overall. But those are some legitimate questions, and overall, like, I'm hoping you can find some support to connect with other women in the drop-in groups that we offer here, and in the support for betrayed partners groups that are in other places, the 12 steps for betrayed partners, those kind of things, so that you're not alone as you are asking some really challenging questions. And ultimately, I hope that you find the peace that you need to be able to make the decisions that serve you and your loved ones in the best way possible.
One of the other people who's done webinars for us has said, if it's a good decision today, it'll be a good decision tomorrow. So you don't have to decide at this point in 2 months. Now, you can, I hear what you're saying. I can't vision if this is how it's going to be in 2 years, me hanging on. You have a long history, I mean, like decades, of time together. So it is complicated. Yeah, all of those things that you mentioned could be, I'm just coming off of, using, and I am really anxious because I don't have my automatic coping mechanism. I mean, all of those, if you looked online, an addict fits into like everything. But that doesn't mean that we are diagnosable as those. That means that we may have those traits. So what Troy suggested with working with a qualified, psychiatrist that is able to understand from an addiction standpoint. Not all of them are well versed at that. So, but he may, he may have OCD. He may need, some stabilizing med. The other thing that I've run across a number of people who are on the Asperger spectrum, and that no touch and all of that. There's a surprising number of people who are sex addicts that are on the spectrum of some form. Having the knowledge, like just having it, getting the test and understanding, that's knowledge of, like this somebody on the spectrum, their behavior, their ability to connect is very different. And just knowing what you've got, a lot of times, then you've got the perspective of that. 2 months in is really, I know it, I'm sure he's going like, oh my gosh, it's been 2 months. Yes, yay. But the flip side of it is, after 16 years of denying to me that there was a problem, so these are the kind of clients that come to us in treatment, because at Seeking Integrity Los Angeles, we're looking at all of those underlying issues. Yes, there's absolutely, we're here and we talk about, attachment wounds. We talk about all of those things. We're looking at all of those in a clinical setting. And in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever, we're able to help these guys move in a very different way. Things that are decades old problems. So obviously, the highest level of help is, if he's just going to SAA meetings, like you're that's the really long haul. If he's working with a qualified therapist doing individual and group work, great. That's a good, a qualified therapist, not a generalist. If he's doing our drop-in groups, great. I mean, the more he's doing, he can't do too much, is what I'm saying. This early in recovery, like every day, some at least one thing, to be on, to be moving forward. And then you're also going to see, like that's actions that are demonstrated his level of commitment to moving things in a different place. So, but yes, please, there's a betrayed partner group today at 12:30 Pacific time, another one tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. drop-in group support. Please join those. Those are for you. I'm so glad you're here. And please know that there is, we see Troy too, he just talked about that case, 5 years of hanging in there. Not everybody should or needs to, but honestly, people can change. I'm living proof that addicts can get different. So, okay. Next question. I'm 18 months sober with my sex addiction and I'm in recovery. I struggle every day with shame and guilt. And yes, I believe I truly do know the difference between the two. I honestly feel like I have a pretty good grasp on my shame spirals and know when shame speak is present. I feel like I am not good enough, or no matter how hard I work in recovery, it won't ever be good enough for my wife. I know that this is shame talking, but how do I truly know if it's not, meaning, will she ever love me again?
I love that question. So the shadow of shame that I personify in order to be able to make sense of it for myself, it sounds like the one that's talking to you is the judge, and the judge is telling you that you're not good enough. And the key word in there is you're not good enough for your wife. So when we look at that phrase, I'm not good enough for blank. And I always ask that with a question mark. So I'm not good enough for what? For love, compassion, intimacy, the job, whatever the blank is, that helps us a little bit to challenge that a little bit more. When we say I'm not good enough for a person, that kind of sets us up for failure in a way, because there's so much judgment that goes into it from both sides of that. So if you can take out the for my wife and just ask yourself, am I good enough? Question mark, yes or no. Does that change it a little bit for you? Because to be honest, some people might not be able to fully accept us. Some people may not be able to be okay with the lifestyles that we've led, or the decisions that we've made, or the struggles that we have. And does that mean, therefore, that we are not good enough? And does it mean we're not good enough for them? Well, we could split straws, I guess, and say, well, it means I'm not good enough for them. What that really means is that whatever is going on in my life is bumping up against some of their pain and their struggles, and they are not sure how to handle that for themselves. And so they're trying to do what they need to do for themselves, but it does not actually diminish my value. And that's where shame really can kick us in the teeth, because shame will tell you, well, you're not good enough. And no matter how hard you try, your wife is never, ever, ever going to accept you. And so it becomes this moving target. The judge will set the target here and say, well, you need to do all these things, and then your wife will accept you. And so then you work and you do all these things, and then your wife doesn't accept you. And so then the judge will say, well, it's because you didn't do all these things. And so it moves the target. And the whole time we've been hustling for our value, as Brene Brown says. We're hustling for our value versus connecting with, actually, I am enough. I'm flawed and defective, just like everybody else on the planet, but I am worthy of love and belonging. And so that is the challenge. So when the judge starts talking to you and saying, well, you're not enough for your wife, you can have a conversation with your judge and say, well, what in the heck is going on here? Why are you talking to me right now? What's going on? You're scared that I'm going to end up not connecting with my wife. Oh, you're scared that we're going to end up separating. You're trying to prevent me from feeling rejection. You're trying to prevent me from feeling abandonment. Okay, great. Thank you. The way you're doing that is actually really harmful and hurtful. So I'm not going to listen to you. I'm actually going to go to my wife and say, hey, man, my shame has really been kind of perking up a little bit. And here are some of the things that I've been doing to try and make a difference in connection with you. Is it working? Are we connecting? I feel like I'm kind of connecting with you, but there's like this fear that it's not going to be enough. And hear what she has to say. Go to the horse's mouth and hear what. Not that your wife's the horse.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm so sorry.
I know the analogy, but
Yes, yeah, I'm so sorry. But go to her and say
the direct source.
right, rather than having an argument with the shadow of shame, which will come up with all kinds of crap that is untrue. Like, let's talk about it with the light on and say, hey, my shame's really coming up. I'm really worried that no matter what I do, it's not going to be enough. Again, going back to, at some point as we go on this journey, we have to connect with the sense that I am worthy no matter what. No matter what other people think, no matter what other people believe, no matter what other people do, I am worthy of love and belonging, and so are they. And from that place, it comes from an empowered place where I'm then able to make healthy choices that are in the best interest of me and in the best interest of my family, even if they choose that for them, they need to distance themselves from me, and not let the judge hijack that and say, well, see, that's just evidence that you're not enough. No, that's evidence that they were needing to take care of themselves. And I am so proud of them for doing that. And I am worthy of love and belonging enough that I can hold space for that and love them and love me. So that's the idea. It's a journey that we all work on probably for the rest of our life, but that's the idea.
Well, and yeah, there's so much. I love all that you were sharing, and I thought this feels like it's those voices. So those are the voices that are in our heads, and I'm going, like if your wife is there and it's 18 months later, that's a good sign. I mean, honestly, indifference is. Dr. Rob talks about this often. When he sees a relationship where the partner is indifferent, that's a lot tougher bridge to cross. When they're still in the fight and they're going like, I'm angry at you, they still care. So now if you've been separated for 18 months and there's no path to to moving back together again, that's a whole different conversation. But at the end of the day, recovery is about us and how do we learn to live in the world. And even if we're not in that particular relationship, we're going to go trash another one if we don't get, if we don't change. So I honor that you are 18 months sober. I'm incredibly grateful for that. But it takes some bravery to be able to go to your wife and go, is this, here's what I'm feeling. Here's what here's what I'm experiencing. Do you perceive that she looked at you in a funny way and, or she's angry, or was she yelling at me? We've shared on this before. The story I'm telling myself, I love that because it's not accusatory, but it's like, Troy, the story I'm telling myself, when you're, playing with your phone while I'm trying to have a conversation with you, is that you're not really interested in hearing what I'm saying, and and it might be, oh, it was just this crisis client and I really needed to do that. It was just my timing was off, well, that's a completely different story than the story I told myself. My first reaction is going to be, oh, I'm not even worth his time, he just doesn't even care. Well, that's those lovely little voices. So I encourage you, I'm glad you're here. I encourage you to continue, the recovery path, and to be, looking at those shadows of shame, and advocate for yourself, and know that you are making progress. You aren't perfect, will never be perfect, but we're all worthy of love, and so I always hope that, with couples, that if they want to be together, that they have a healing path for that, and many do, but not everybody. So
Let me just say one last thing as
sure.
you
Oh, sorry.
it's okay, I
It's
can go
in.
back. I can go
Uh-huh.
back.
Yeah.
Your last question, or the last thing, is you wonder if she will ever love you again. And I Byron Katie work, she always she says, turn that around. Let's turn that statement around. Is it possible that you will be able to love you?
Oh.
And how much of a barrier is there for you being able to love you and have compassion for you? And shame will hijack that too. So as I'm looking at it, I'm like, how much are you able to love you? Because maybe your wife is trying to love you in the best way she knows how. But for me, when shame is hijacking that, I deflect it and I
Mm.
don't see it. I don't notice that the person's actually trying to love on me, because my judge has been saying to me, well, you're not worthy of love. And so I don't even recognize that as a loving gesture. I just think, oh, you're just doing that because that's what you're supposed to do, or oh, you're just doing that because somebody told you to do that, versus like, oh, actually she does love me, and I can see it because I love myself. So that's one of the things I want you to ponder on, is how do you think you'll be able to love you? So that's my final thought.
Well, and I think it's really easy for us to go, if they really knew who I was, that whole voice of judgment too, of
Mhm.
like, they're doing this, but they don't really know all the gory details.
Right.
So therefore, and we're holding them apart. So, that also deflects. Next question. If my SA husband says his anger level is 70% less, shouldn't he have some other feelings that have taken in its place? He says he's not feeling angry, that he's feeling nothing. Is that possible? Supposedly he has been sober for 18 plus months, but does no meetings, groups, etc. He might be occasionally seeing a therapist, but not a CSAT.
Okay, so some counter transference. I'm just owning it. Back in the day when I was early in my marriage, um, I would tell my wife, I'm not angry. I'm not angry. I totally was angry. Totally was freaking angry. But I was in so much denial about it, because in my household there was so much anger growing up that I didn't want to be anything like that. So I would be in denial about it. And even though it was true. So there could be some denial going on here, as I share that. Anger is like the hard shell of a Tootsie Roll pop. So the inside is like sadness and fear, is the Tootsie Roll, the gooey center. Anger is like the outside. So um, if we use that analogy, he's licking the hard shell off, but he hasn't got to the inside yet. So is that possible for him to not feel anything? Well, that is technically possible. I call that a mutated emotion, which it turns into apathy. Um, but it requires some awareness and some willingness to go in and explore some of those other emotions. And it is the same for women, but I think for men especially, we've been taught not to have or share emotion, and so it becomes incredibly vulnerable for men to talk about what they're sad about and what they're afraid about. And actually, in John Gottman's work, when he hooks the guys up in his love lab to all the sensors and stuff, and they start talking about emotions, their heart rate starts going up and their cortisol levels like start speaking. It becomes like this very overwhelming experience for them. So without some guidance and maybe some support, and it sounds like he doesn't have a whole lot of that, and other men modeling what that might look like, I'm guessing that all he knows what to do is just shove it all down and just say, nope, I'm not feeling that. Nope, I'm not feeling that. And that's going to be a struggle for him and you, because when we shut down emotion, regardless of what it is, we also shut down joy and love and happiness. So when we're numbing or shutting down or denying one feeling, we can't selectively do that. We do that with all the emotion. And then I would imagine it leaves you feeling disconnected and lonely and really wanting to see some realness out of him. So it's probably more suppression than possible, but that's how I'd answer that.
Yeah, and I think you probably feel unsafe too. So to me, he's not even sober. He may be abstinent. And this is like the worst place for an addict to be. It's like back in the day, there was the little poster that had the kitty hanging on by the nails, hang in there. And that's what it feels like to me, because this is somebody who doesn't have, if they really are abstinent, and addicts lie, then they aren't using their maladaptive coping mechanisms. They aren't doing the thing that would help them numb out, or would help, regulate that dysregulated, all that dysregulated stuff. But they're also not engaging in the recovery things which really help. Those are the tools that help us live life, in a more regulated state, and be able to connect, in joy and in sorrow, and all those things. But to really connect with other people. Dr. Rob talks about the opposite of addiction is healthy attachment. So he is not connected to, to recovery groups, to a qualified therapist, to you. I mean, so that feels like, he's in his own little silo. And, while his anger may be less, and yeah, I love the Tootsie Roll analogy, and I won't ever see a Tootsie Roll pop without thinking that now. But for me, anger was a great cover for hurt. I did not want to feel hurt, and anger can be a very powerful and pushed out emotion, because if I'm angry or raging, that's even more, at someone, then then all the energy is flowing out in a way, and I'm not having to address that Tootsie Roll pop center that's, oh my gosh, this hurts me, and I don't want to feel that terrible, horrible thing. So it switches the power to outward focused, but it doesn't ultimately help me address the hurts and the wounds. So we have time for other questions.
We do, yeah. The easiest way to ask a question is to use the Q&A button.
Q&A at the bottom, yeah, at the bottom of your screen. We love questions.
We do. This journey that we're on is always fascinating to me, and I'm always, the more that I sit with people, the more that I see their wounds of loss, neglect, rejection, abandonment, betrayal, abuse, how they get stirred up and bumped up against, and how much shame hijacks that. And I notice, even for me, how even though I've written a dang book and know about these shadows, how sneaky they are in hijacking my life. And it's like, oh, there you are. And as Brene Brown pointed out, the only people in the world who don't have shame are sociopaths. So I guess I'd rather elect to have some shame and have to grapple with them every once in a while than be a sociopath. So
I agree. I'm glad you're not yeah. And I've been in recovery a long time. It doesn't, I didn't get to go to the, oh, I'm so zen all the time, like it's a continued journey. And my husband and daughter, like sometimes, like they're looking at me and I was like, this is my thought process. And like, this is what I have to do. And it's ongoing work. And so, like, this is not like, oh, I woke up one day and went, well, you've got all these years of recovery. So now you're perfect. Heck no. But I have the tools to use to be able to do life differently. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful. And thank you. We've got some, oh, oh, geez, my 12-step sponsor once shouted at me that I was a sociopath for relapsing. That would be not, unless that person is a qualified mental health professional and has thoroughly assessed you, wrong. Okay.
I'm so
So
sorry.
yeah, yeah. You know what? Sponsors are humans. Sponsors are on the path. They're just, they're guideposts along the path. So, okay, I am the betrayed spouse, married for 28 years, together almost 30. He was acting out before and during our entire marriage. We have been separated for almost 18 months. He has almost no contact with our daughters because he has not been safe. It is only the past 2 weeks that I have seen my addict husband not go right into shame and defensiveness anytime we are together or are talking. I have only known about all of this for a little over 17 months. I believe it was my husband asking if I will ever love him again. I've made it very clear with actions and words that I love him. However, it is not about love for me anymore. It is about safety. I hear ya. I am very confused by his question. How would you recommend that I proceed with that? So first of all, we'll see. We don't know who asked necessarily, but let's pretend that it is. So what are your thoughts, Troy?
So, um, so you're wanting to know how would you process his question about whether you will ever love him again? And I love how you've distinguished the difference between love and safety. That's huge. A lot of people kind of smush those together, and they are two very different. They are two very different things. You can love somebody and care about them, and also identify that it's probably not in one's best interest to to have them be in an integral part of your life, and so you put some boundaries around that. Boundaries are really helpful. So what he's and I love that he's not going into his shame as much. That's one of the things that addicts, me included, have really struggled with, is that when the partner or somebody talks about how my actions have hurt them, rather than me being able to hold space and have empathy for your pain, my shadows immediately hijack that, and all it does is say, well, I'm sorry I've been such a sucky husband, sorry you've had to deal with such a horrible person your whole life, and like, that's shame. And what I've just done is, well, what my shadows have just done is made it all about me. It's, that's what shame does. It wraps us all around us in a really unhealthy way, never gets our needs met, actually. But rather than being able to say, wow, I can see that you're hurting, and I can see how my behaviors have really caused some pain for you, and what do you need for safety? Like, that's how an empathic approach does. So I'm happy to hear that he's not doing that as much. That's wonderful. What he's really asking, again, is that same question that the other person had asked. It's a twofold question. Will he ever be able to love himself again? And knowing that he's done all of these things for the past 30 years, longer than that, is there any hope that the two of you are going to be able to have a connection and intimacy where that past doesn't like show up and like hijack it? That's what he's asking. And in part, the answer is, as long as you're able to keep the shame out, then that will be. But there will be moments from now until the end of time where things are going to happen. You'll drive by something, you'll see something, and triggers are going to get triggered. Wounds are going to be hit. And how are the two of you going to be able to talk about them and process them? That's part of what he's asking. But it's all tied into his own sense of worth. That's something that really you've already said, like, I've used words and I've used actions to convey that I have love for you, and that's wonderful that you're able to do that. And he's maybe not hearing that what I need in order to feel safe and be able to thrive in this relationship are some boundaries, and having you respect these boundaries, and him not going to shame about that. So it sounds to me like you're actually heading, like you're down the path, and you're doing the work that you need to do for that. And part of that is maybe mirroring or reflecting that back to him and saying, it sounds like you are really scared, honey, that your actions are going to prevent you from ever feeling loved. And honestly, that's your work. I can't I can't convince you of that. That's your work. I've already reassured you that I love you, and I hear that you're scared. I have hope for the marriage, or I'm just modeling a possibility of what you'd say. I have hope for us. These are the things I need in order to move forward. And I can see that you're still wrestling with some stuff. So I'm hoping that you can continue to work on your journey and connect with your sponsor and your therapist and the guys in your support, so that you can continue to work on diminishing that shame, so that we actually can connect. So those are some thoughts.
Yeah, and I feel so sad because he has not been safe. He's missed out on a connection with you and your 4 daughters, and they have missed out on dad. So if I was him, I'd be doing everything I need to do to help create that safety that you need. I agree with what Troy said too, that the shame, and Dr. Rob talks about this too, is self-focused, narcissistic to a degree, because it shifts it all back to me, oh poor me, rather than having the empathy of wow, my behavior has caused me to be absent from 5 people I love's lives, and what do I need to do to connect to that in a very different way? And regardless of whether you stay together or not, you will always co-parent. You will always grandparent at some point, because you have these children that deserve to have both of their parents, and both of their parents, being adults. So for him to, I hope, step into the space of, take the focus off me. What do I need to do to be a person of safety? Would be a great, step. And I think you would, it sounds like you're really good at acknowledging that. He's just like, Troy was talking about earlier, it's being deflected. So, okay, next question. How important is it for the betrayed partner to do 12-step?
Well, so I'll answer it more broadly and then more specifically with 12-step. I think it's really important for betrayed partners to do their work, whatever that looks like for them. For some, it may look like 12-step, and I'll talk about 12-step in a sec. But what tends to happen, or what I've seen happen a lot, is that the betrayed partner will often have this belief system that says, you're the addict, you're the one that screwed up, you're the one that has work to do, and I don't have any work to do. And so you need to do your work. And they kind of disconnect themselves from the experience. And I get that they're doing that. There's no judgment about that. That's just something that I observed has happened. The challenge with that is that you're still in a marriage and you're still in a relationship. So what tends to happen is, a lot of times the partner's right here and the addict is like down, like way far behind. But then the addict starts to go to therapy, and they start to do some 12-step work, and they start to work with a sponsor, and they go to group, and they start to learn some things, and they begin to it's been said that when we start our addiction, we stop maturing. So, when we start recovery, we start to grow. So I'm about 20 years old now in my recovery. But anyway, so they start to grow, and their brain starts to, and so they begin to become more aware. And so we come to a point where we're connected, like, we're doing well. But then if they continue to move forward, they can surpass the other person, and then the other person is left behind. And so they feel just as lonely either way. So I've seen that happen a lot of times. So it's not a judgment, it's just an observation. And so part of that is that having the partner know that there is work to do. You have a betrayal wound. So if we were just going to work on that in and of itself, there's some wound care that needs to be done about that betrayal wound. But oftentimes these wounds did not happen in a vacuum. And pretty much every partner that I've talked to has wounds of rejection and abandonment and neglect that did not come from their partner, that are very much playing a role in how this all works. And so as they continue to do their work and work on that and heal together, it actually can create this really nice healing environment for both, because you're talking the same language, you're working on the same journey together, you're holding hands as you're walking along the journey together. And it can be a really hard, challenging hike sometimes, but the journey is still fulfilling. So I think it's important for partners to do their work, regardless of whether they stay or don't stay in the relationship, because there's wounds that if you don't heal them, it's going to impact you. 12-step is a way for partners to do their work. The challenge with that is there aren't as many. You can go to, does In the Rooms have ones for betrayed partners?
So they do. We have a whole list of all the betrayed partner 12-step groups and other support on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. Under the resource tab, you'll see. Perfect. And you can, and they're hyperlinked, so you can click on and see, including the prodependence.org, which is 12-step in a prodependence lens. So
right. Thank you. So yeah, there are they're not as many as the others, and so maybe finding a good fit may be a little bit more challenging. But the 12-step is a way to work on recovery. And for a lot of people in the recovery world, that is a method that really, really works. And they find a lot of healing in it. So go to a meeting or two, check it out. If you don't like that one, go to a different one and see if it fits for you. Really, the idea is to connect with some other people in this journey and have somebody who can say, hey, I've been there. Here's some pitfalls to look out for. Here's some things that you may want to take a look at for yourself. And that's really what the 12 steps are doing. And I found lots of people heal when they use that. So that is my answer.
And I'm sticking to it. So I have a couple things to tag on with. Kristen Snowden, who does these webinars, typically the second week, but the last 2 months, it's been the third week, has a book called Life Anonymous. And it's a 12-step book for people who aren't addicts. And a lot of partners have found that useful. The 12 steps are just good living tools. And Kristen is not an addict. She co-authored it with Scott Brassert, who does these webinars as well. And he is, and so they have both lenses, and there are some, it is just helpful stuff. So, when Troy was talking about doing your work, I always come at it from the lens of you deserve support, but yeah, it's support about those betrayal wounds. What else is going on? Addicts healing community, partners healing community, getting, other people going, yeah, I know, I'm dealing with that, or I've dealt with that, it just, okay, I can get through this. That's all really helpful things. A lot of the 12-step, the codependent language has seeped into a lot of the partner 12 steps. So as we always say, take what you need and leave the rest. There's still a whole bunch of people in there that, have found out how to have healthy boundaries for themselves, have figured some stuff out. You can have coffee with them and whatever. So try them, and remember that, I say this, for addicts too, don't just go to one meeting and go, oh yeah, it didn't fit for me. Well, every meeting has a personality. They do. I had to find my right home group. I did. I just switched in the last couple of months because I found one I like even better. Great. That doesn't mean, that doesn't mean anything. That just means, I'm looking for what's going to work for me for the moment. So try multiple. I mentioned earlier, we've got a betrayed partner group on this platform at 12:30 today. That's free. Good connection. So next question. I'm having difficulty finding a CSAT in my area. How do I find the right therapist for porn addiction couples counseling? Okay, so two different questions. You can find a CSAT. If you just are looking for a CSAT, go to the ITAP website, www.iitap.com, and you can use their directory. That said, there's a bunch of them that I refer to regularly. There's a bunch of them that I wouldn't. So, so it depends. So do your homework, ask the right questions. And couples counseling is recommended at a certain point. Many of them still use the codependent language. So I have partners that reach out to me and go, I went to the CSAT and he told me I was part of the problem. That wasn't helpful for the relationship. So you really do want to make sure you're interviewing anybody that you're looking to work with. So, but if you're just looking for the directory, that's the easiest way to find them. So, okay, how do you know the difference between shame and healthy shame?
So it's interesting. Back in the day, and now I'm not gonna remember his name. I should have been looking it up.
Some guy.
he's well known in the recovery world. Let me see if I can look it up.
Are you talking about John Bradshaw?
Yeah, there he is. Thank you. He talked about the difference between healthy shame and toxic shame. And really, well, okay. So then Brene Brown she's done extensive research on shame. And Brene says there is no such thing as healthy shame. When you go back and you listen to John Bradshaw's work, what he really is talking about is humility, guilt, like being willing to accept that I'm flawed and defective. So he's using different words for it back in the day, but it's the same concept. So there really isn't there isn't healthy shame. Shame hijacks our ability to connect. Shame hijacks our ability to have empathy. Shame hijacks our ability to show our emotion and be vulnerable. So it's not really healthy. What is healthy is guilt, owning that I made some mistakes. I want to fix it, having some humility to say, I'm not perfect, but I'm doing my best. That's healthy. So that's a short answer to that we could talk for a long time about the difference. But basically, shame is basically the deep and abiding belief and experience that you are flawed and defective and therefore unworthy of love and belonging, Brene Brown's definition. And that's, as if we're hijacked by that, that's not healthy, no matter what. No matter how it shows up, it will hijack our connection. So I am flawed and defective, and I'm worthy of love and connection, and I've made some mistakes, and I want to make a difference, and I want to repair. That's healthy, and that's not shame.
Thank you. Okay. Can you explain how an addict uses transference and projection in a relationship?
I can explain how everybody uses transference and projection in relationship, not just addicts. So transference is when I have things that you are doing that remind me of other people in my life that I have unresolved issues with. And so instead of seeing you for you, I see you through the lens of these other people in my life who've hurt me. So I see you through the lens of my bullies, or I see you the lens of my abusive parent or whatever. And in that way, now I'm treating you that way, no longer seeing you as you, I'm seeing you as somebody else. Projection is I'm seeing in you the stuff in me that I don't like about myself. And so now I'm projecting that onto you, and I don't want to look at that. And so now, again, instead of seeing you for you, I'm seeing you as me. And I don't like me, so I don't like you. And so if both ways hamper my ability to actually be raw and transparent with you. So if those are coming up, it's helpful to become clear about that. And there are some processes that a lot of therapists use, me included, to walk people through that of like, okay, is this my stuff, or is this your stuff, or is this something from my past stuff? and the bottom line is, how can I see you as a human, and how can I see me as a human, and actually have a human connection right now versus living in the past or dealing with shame.
Okay, next question. My essay has been on a slow recovery road. He just started reading Unwanted by Jay Stringer. He has, for the first time, realized that his childhood had a huge influence on his destructive choices. What would be some suggestions to delve further into the whole attachment side of in baby steps? This is a whole new world for him. We don't have access to CSATs or good specialized therapists near us. So books or podcasts or specific videos that will not be overwhelming to him.
So with the fear of being self-deprecating, I have this book called the Finding Peace Workbook, and it's all about that. It wasn't written specifically for addicts, although a lot of therapists and coaches in the world use it for walking through some of these, what I call attachment wounds, and beginning to have an understanding of what is going on with that. It dovetails really well with a lot of the different models, dovetails really well with CSATs, and I'm familiar with Jay Stringer's work, dovetails really well with his stuff. But that is a way to do it. And like Tammy said, on Fridays, he's welcome to attend the free men's drop-in group on 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where I walk a guy right through that whole process every week. So he's more than welcome to attend that. If Tammy says okay, I have a workshop that's coming up this weekend that it's not specifically about addiction, but it is an introduction to the attachment wounds, and I can post that in the chat.
Please do. Yeah, please do. So yeah. So yeah, I mean, all of the drop-in group, I mean, it's challenging because, like all of those things will poke the wounds. And so, the more support he has, I mean, honestly, and I know I said it a little while ago, but we safely cocoon the guys that are at our treatment program because, the wounds are deep, and to have them in a safe space where we're really able to help them unpack that, but put them back together again so that when they leave, they're in a very different place. That's what we do. And that's why we do it. It creates the safe environment for them to be able to tolerate, working on those things. So, but I'm glad he's finally, starting to step into that. So, and I'm just going to tell you, my battery just gave me you're really low. So if I drop off early, I'm sorry. But anyway, thank you for answering my question. Your insight and expert knowledge is extremely helpful and validating. I'll bless you both for being here and giving us all the opportunity to have access to you. Thank you for being here. We appreciate the questions, and we know the journey. And so please know that it comes from a heart of, we want people to find healing and help. We're all on this path of life, and we didn't all get the tools we needed. My toolbox wasn't complete when I, was born. So, I've needed a lot of help. So, okay. My SA believes it's okay to fantasize about me, his wife. Can you tell him why it's not okay?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. For me, it is all about, am I seeing you as you, or am I seeing you as an object? And I don't have a moral judgment about whether somebody's going to fantasize or not. That's between them and their sponsor and their therapist and all that. What my belief is about fantasy is that when I'm fantasizing, I am not actually seeing you as you. I may be fantasizing about things that you might actually not feel comfortable doing, and therefore I'm not seeing you as you. I'm seeing you as an object, and an object that's gonna be for my pleasure. And the moment the work of the Arbinger Institute with the leadership and self-deception and their work, what they've discovered is that when we objectify someone, it justifies the way that we treat them. And we can be justified in treating them less than human and not feeling guilty about it because they're an object. So Objects don't have any feelings. So my concern when somebody fantasizes or objectifies somebody is that they are missing out on the humanity and the ability to actually connect, and they are giving their shadows an opportunity to like suppress what's actually going on inside. And then their royal and the rebel in particular will justify that behavior and say, well, it's totally okay, and they don't have to take ownership of it.
So yeah, she adds objectified based on body parts. So
that's even better, because now we've diminished you to a part, right? I mean, I'm being sarcastic there, but that's what I mean by that. Like, we've diminished you now to a body part. We are not seeing you as a human being anymore. And that's why I think that can be really harmful, because that leads us to justification and rationalization, which are all forms of denial, which lead us down roads that aren't going to serve us. And it doesn't lead to empathy, compassion, love, any of that, because I don't see you as a whole person anymore. You're just a body part, and that is not who you are.
no, and the lack of safety for you creates a bigger gap for the two of you too, because like he's doing it, how it feels, so that doesn't feel safe. So why would you want to step into the space for closeness if it's just objectified body parts? So, but my computer didn't die, yay. So thank you all. Thank you, Troy. I'm going to send you an email to connect. If you didn't catch the chat, he did put a link in the, oh no, you sent it to all panelists. We got to change it to everybody.
Oh, I'll do it again. Sorry.
Yeah, please. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So grab that. I'll leave the computer on for a second, but that is a link to the workshop. So please check that out. And partners will see Troy alternating Thursdays on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. Men join every Friday on sexandrelationshiphealing.com every Friday morning. So thank you, my friend. I will talk to you soon, but we'll see you again in October. So
all right. Thank you, Tammy.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good weekend.